with a stick and a pair of blades. On the ice we cut our teeth. We took our knocks in the penalty box. Our mother was a referee.
Herb Brooks coached the 1980 U.S. Olympic ice hockey team against the Soviet Union, and in doing so became a significant leader in society. He played a dominant role in winning the game, but was even more influential to Americans as he gave courage to them during the Cold War, inspiring them that we could beat the Russians. Herb's win brought a frustrated country back together. His team represented hope and a miracle during bad times in America. Shortly after his death, Herb's son Dan, daughter Kelly, and cousin Bill Walter created his legacy, the Herb Brooks Foundation. The Herb Brooks Foundation is providing opportunities for kids to play the game of hockey. The foundation will assist in making hockey fun for kids and letting them learn to love the game the way we did, says John McClellan, Executive Director of the Herb Brooks Foundation.
I think it has to do a little bit with, the Soviet team being largely a group of, professional players, and them being beaten by a bunch of young college kids. I think it had a little bit to do with the United States beating a Soviet team, which we always like to beat a Soviet team. Might have had, people being just proud at the time to be an American, which at the time was, we were going through a lot of not fun times, economy wasn't real good, things in the world weren't really very good. I think we had just made a decision that, or maybe shortly after, we weren't going to go to the Summer Olympics in the Soviet Union, so a lot of things kind of played into that memory of that Soviet game. Mm-hmm. But remember, that wasn't, while people think that's the game that we won the gold medal on, we still had to come back 2 days later and beat a real good, strong Finnish team to actually win the gold medal. If we would have tied that or lost that game, we wouldn't have won a gold medal.
Herb Brooks was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. He attended Johnson High School, where his team won the 1955 state championship. Brooks continued his hockey career with the Minnesota Golden Gophers from 1955 to 1959. He was a member of the 1960 Olympic team, only to be cut the last week before the game started. 3 weeks later, Brooks sat at home with his dad and watched the team he almost made win the gold. Afterwards, Brooks went up to Coach Riley and said, "Well, you must have made the right decision. You won." This humbling moment served as motivation for an already self-driven person. From 1960 to 1970, Brooks set a record for playing on a total of 8 U.S. National Olympic teams, including the 1964 and 1968 Olympic squads. He led the Minnesota Golden Gophers to 3 NCAA titles in 1974, 1976, and 1979. From 1981 to 1985, he coached in the NHL for the New York Rangers, where he became the first American-born coach in New York Rangers history to win 100 games. He also coached the Minnesota North Stars from 1987 to 1988, New Jersey Devils from 1992 to 1993, and Pittsburgh Penguins from 1999 to 2000. He was also a longtime scout for the Penguins in the 1990s and held the role of director player personnel. He held that role until 2002 to the day of his death.
What was it like to play for Herb Brooks?
What was it like? It was an honor to play for him. He was probably the best hockey coach that I ever played for, and certainly a tough, demanding coach, but very, very fair. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what a player wants, is just a coach that's fair. If you're playing well, you play. If you're not playing well, you're going to hear about it, and you know the reason why you're not playing. So, but Herbie was a very, very demanding coach, and
period. Well, once again, it's Pavlich and Schneider combining. A long shot from a fairly severe angle, catching Tretiak in the top glove side. He's well out. He's in good position, although he was moving a little bit in the opposite direction to where the shot went. Here we can see it again in the top corner.
The 1980s have been born in turmoil, strife, and change. This is a time of challenge to our interests and our values, and it's a time to test our wisdom and our skills.
During the 1980s, gasoline prices went from 35 cents to over $1 for the first time. There was the Cuban Missile Crisis. America launched the first space shuttle, Discovery, and to top it all off, we were nearing the end of the Cold War. The Cold War started in 1947, and during the Olympics, Americans were worried. Jimmy Carter was currently serving as last year's president. Pennsylvania had just had 2 nuclear reactors go on 3 Mile Islands, causing a cleanup cost of $1 billion. The Soviets started to attack Afghanistan, forcing Americans to send troops. In the 1980s, after the U.S. beat the Soviets, people were persuaded to watch television more. The number of televisions nearly doubled over the course of the decade, from only 561 million in 1980 to 910 million in 1987 and around 1 billion in 1989. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter would boycott the Moscow Olympics if Soviet troops would not pull out of Afghanistan. It was a boycott to save the Olympics, so the Lord Kellerman, Michael Morris of the International Olympic Committee, and the president of the International Olympic Committee organized a meeting with Jimmy Carter and Soviet General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev before the May 24th deadline. The boycott is an attempt to save the Games. Lord Kellerman insisted that the Games should continue as scheduled, and Carter would reaffirm the U.S. position to boycott until the USSR withdrew from Afghanistan.
Herb Brooks is still affecting the people today. He was popular for coaching many teams and doing good with all of them. He never yelled at the opposing team and never really played dirty. Then, in 2004, Disney released a movie called Miracle, and there was another movie about Herb Brooks called Miracle on Ice. Both are a story of how Brooks led the U.S. Olympic team to beat Russia and eventually win the gold. But Brooks was still fascinated they beat Russia. That game against Russia was called the Miracle Game. So after the game between the U.S. and USSR, Brooks' team went to the championship to win the gold.
Upon the 25th anniversary of Miracle on Ice, the Olympic Ice Arena in Lake Placid, New York, where the United States won the gold medal, was renamed Herb Brooks Arena. Herb Brooks was one of the most famous hockey coaches in his time period, and even now. He coached 2 Olympic teams, Team France in 1998 and the U.S. team again in 2002. After Herb Brooks' death, he was finally inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2006.
So before the 1980 Olympics, BU and Minnesota had one of the best rivalries in hockey. Yeah. So what was your impression of Coach Brooks before the team?
Well, I thought he was nuts. And throughout the year, I thought he was nuts. But a great coach, a great motivator, knew the game so well. You could see he just wore his heart on his sleeve. When he was a coach at the University of Minnesota, there was nothing bigger than Minnesota hockey to him. He grew up there. And then when he was the coach of the Olympic team, there was no greater honor for him than to represent his country and coach his country.
Jim Craig, he's making too many good saves. Eruzione! Mike Eruzione!
A lot of those players finish college and have gone on to careers after hockey because of going to school and using that same discipline that made them successful in hockey in the classroom too. So that's why I asked everybody that interviews me like this if they've done their homework.